Well, it's been speculated for weeks, but it has officially happened. The New York Jets have traded Leonard Williams, their former first round, 6 overall pick from the 2015 draft, to the New York Giants for a third round pick in 2020 and a fifth round pick in 2021. And the big thing about this is for the third round pick with the Giants record, they're hoping to get a mid third round pick, depending on how the Giants finish. Maybe that could be a top 10 third round pick. It was also reported the Jets were looking to similar compensation to what Dante Fowler got in that deal last year, a third and a fifth rounder, so they get that for Leonard Williams. And I'm going to look at this trade in two sides. The first side, I'm going to look at the negative. And the negative is not only are they losing a very good player from this team, but the negative to me is where he's going. If it comes out that another team offered a similar offer to this, it might not sit well with Jet fans because, let's be honest, they're competing with the Giants. The Giants will never say they're competing with the Jets. The Jets will never say they're competing with the Giants, but they're competing. They're competing for New York. And really, over the last 2 decades, it's been a Giant town because the Giants have been very good. And look, does this help the Jets get some much needed draft capital? Absolutely. Could the Giants potentially even let Leonard Williams go? I doubt it because of the price they paid to get him. But the thing is, if Leonard Williams really hits with the Giants, it's not going to look good on the Jets for two reasons. Number one, it's because the Jets drafted him and they couldn't get the most out of him. But the second thing in terms of optics is if he does help the Giants become more successful than the Jets, it's not going to be a good reflection on the Jets front office. But the thing is, if this was indeed the best offer they could get for Leonard Williams, the Jets need a draft capital. They get a good pick here. And they didn't want to pay Leonard Williams a lot of money, and I can get that. In terms of the sack production, it hasn't been there. They don't want to pay him $15 million a year. I can completely understand that. And the Jets also have a history of when these guys leave, it hasn't really come back to haunt them. I mean, Sheldon Richardson's been a good player with Cleveland this year, but he's also bounced around Seattle. He's bounced around Minnesota. He's bounced around Cleveland. So if he was really that great and dominant, you would think he would stick in a place. Muhammad Wilkerson, we all know what happens, and I think that was the cautionary tale into this contract, which was they didn't want to pay a defensive end that type of money again and then get hurt on the back end because, let's be honest, Muhammad Wilkerson, he was a better player than Leonard Williams. He was more productive, was a better pass rusher. The Jets gave him the big contract, and it came back to bite him. And he hasn't been the same. He has the off-the-field issues. He didn't make an impact in Green Bay. So for a defensive end, I don't have a problem trading him. And I do think the Jets, it makes sense. They added McClendon another year on his contract, so he'll be back at the nose tackle next year. Henry Anderson's under contract. He's a solid defensive end. And Quinnen Williams, I think this is a good opportunity for him because he wasn't getting a lot of playing time. He needs to get the reps. And let's be honest, it didn't look great after the Jacksonville game when the Jets could have had Josh Allen and he took over that game, was a great pass rusher. And Quinnen Williams, who has been solid since returning to his injury, but he hasn't looked like the number 3 overall pick. And hopefully with more reps, more playing time, he can get there. I think that he fits better as an end in the 3-4 scheme, so this will be a better fit for him. So we'll see how that happens. And I do think he needs the playing time, so it makes sense to get Leonard Williams out, get some compensation. You weren't going to give him the big contract, and get Quinnen Williams playing time. So for the Jets, I think this was a solid pick. A mid-third round pick, you're hoping you can get potentially a starting offensive lineman, maybe a situational edge rusher or cornerback, which are 3 positions this team desperately needs. It will be interesting to see how the locker room reacts because you heard how much Leonard Williams was loved in that locker room. We'll have to see what other moves the Jets could potentially make before the deadline, but they're adding draft capital. Last year, because of the Darnold trade, were limited in what they could do in the draft. Now they come in this year, they're probably going to have a top 10 pick. They're going to have a second-round pick. They're going to have 2 threes at least now. So if they make a couple of other moves, they're going to add to that draft capital. And I think they made the smart decision because they realize they have a lot of holes, and the best way to do that is to address it through the draft. That's why they were so aggressive to get Joe Douglas, who was a big personnel guy in Philadelphia. They're hoping he can help with the draft because when people ask me, why are the Jets so bad? I look at their last 2 general managers in the drafting, John Idzik and Mike McCagnon. You look right now, outside of Jamal Adams and Sam Darnold, all of the McCagnon picks, you're going, ugh. Maybe there's a handful of situational players, but it's been rough. They have not drafted well. I can make the case that the Jets have been the worst drafting team over the past 5 years in terms of the players they've drafted, who's turned into a starter, and who's even on the roster. I mean, they had 6 picks, and one of them isn't even on the roster, and he was a third-round pick in Ja'Quai Polite last year. So the Jets, once again, I think they need the draft capital, and it's important. And draft capital is great to sell to the fan base. It's great for hope. It's great to get another valuable pick. But once again, here's the thing with draft picks. It doesn't matter how many you have. It's how you use them. And hopefully Joe Douglas can use them correctly. The good news is for him, he at least now has some ammunition. And it'll be interesting to see how he tries to rebuild this team in the offseason because he hasn't really gotten a fair shake. I know people have criticized the Demaryius Thomas move and the Ryan Khalil move, but the problem was he didn't really have a lot of options, and he knew he was trying to be creative. They needed some bodies, especially at wide receiver and at center. At that point, after the offseason and the draft, it was basically the scraps left over. So he tried to get creative. So people knocking him for that. Look, give him an offseason, give him a draft. I'm high on Joe Douglas. We'll see what he can do. But we kind of got the sense of this after the Jacksonville game that this team is going to go full rebuild mode. It's happened. We'll see what the Jets do now. But once again, the big storyline, Leonard Williams, the good news is he doesn't have to change his zip code, doesn't have to change his stadium. All he has to do is go to a different locker room. He's going to the Giants. The Jets are getting back a third-round pick in 2020 and a fifth-round pick in 2021. And the New York Giants get a new member to that defense who they will hope can help turn it around.